Alright, and now we have the Mumble Audio online. Welcome, boys, to Pathfinder and how to use it. Not too complicated of a program, but initially the reason we use this program is, well, everyone's ready to go, right? Like, you're all here listening and good to go. Just clarifying. I got Hexen. That's the most important thing. Okay, anyway, Pathfinder, the reason we use it is for mapping wormholes, predominantly from K-space to J-space stuff, and it's built around the idea that it's for people living in K-space and trying to track stuff through all over the place, to K-space to J-space, anything like that. K-space is known space for new people. J-space is like wormhole space. Jump space, is that what it stands for, Hexen? Actually, I don't know the etymology.
I don't know on top of my head. I apologize.
That's fine. But anyway, so yeah, here I am in GEHAV for those looking at the display right now. First of all, when you're looking at Pathfinder, you're going to want to go to pathfinder.bravecollective.com and then log in through your authentication through there. There's an open one that's more, I think there's, actually, Rang, how do you get to the open access one? I don't even remember anymore.
It is pathfinder-w.space.
Okay, gotcha. And that's the one that'll take you to the Brave map initially?
That's the one that we started on before we ran our own. That's the one that the developer hosts that is open to everybody.
Gotcha. But yeah, some people get confused because they aren't actually logged into our proper authenticated Pathfinder instance ran by Rangvalder here. So we do have a good consultant here with how things work. But anyway, yeah, so initially we're in GHAV. If you're looking at the Catch Wormhole Locator map, once you're logged into that, Hexen, are you logged in, authenticated in Pathfinder?
No, I need a path, please.
Oh, gotcha. There we go. That should take you to it. But anyway, for those listening right now, we have several different tabs here at the top of the map. And tell me whenever you get in there, Hexen, just so I know that you're tracking. But we have some tabs at the top of this page here, and they each represent different parts of the map that we have partitioned off separately because you can't just fit a full .land size map into the Pathfinder. Like, you can now that we have scrolling and stuff, which is kind of cool. I'm fiddling with it a little right now. But you can fiddle a little bit bigger maps than we had prior to, I don't know, 6 months ago. But that being said, it gets to be a lot to track if you're trying to do a wormhole chain that's like 3 holes deep or something like that. And so we have it separated into different coordinate off parts. You can see some of my private maps here in the recording. For if I get lost, I have one thing for screwing around up in Cloud Ring. But the predominant one that we use is the Catch Wormhole Locator map, because for the whole divers purposes, we operate out of Catch. In Impasse, we're not really friendly to wormhole space area there. We try to roll everything if we're being diligent. If not, we're not even active there and things going bad. But yeah, that's pretty much how that works. So this is the core systems of GE and that sort of area. We do have wormhole generator upgrades installed, the iHubs for GE, 3TechO, no, not 3TechO, 3GD6, YHN. I don't know if 4M is one of them, but we do actually get more wormholes than most other K-space places, and this is extremely rare in the current metagame because you don't really want to invite wormhole connections for your ratters, but Brave is all about good fights, so here we are. Which is great. This is great for what we do, which is just diving into holes for grabbing or fighting or whatever we do. But you can see Catch here. There's the West Catch tab on the top that is a little bit out of date. Let me delete some systems quick. Took care of that. Just making sure that it checked through. There we go. But you can see the West Catch.
This is not loading.
Is it loading? Oh, Pathfinder isn't for you, Hexen?
Correct.
Oh, is it because I had the map link to it in the portal I gave you?
Yeah, I cleared it out. It's fine. I got it now.
Okay. But the West Catch tab here is one of our favorites. It's generally safe space. It's currently owned by, I actually don't remember. Invictus kind of moved out of there. I don't actually remember who's there anymore. But it's kind of a sandwich between us and our main body of stuff in GEHV and the goons far, far, far west in Catch. So it's kind of a good space to check for wormholes. Catch itself proper east catch is a bit of a mess. We usually don't update it aggressively unless we're really active at the time. You can see all these connections are missing right now, and these are just all a bunch of abandoned wormholes that haven't been updated for a while. But that leads through like VTech 3 and that sort of thing. For the purposes of our crabbing fleets, that's really hard to do because V3 is kind of the main center of catch, and everything north and east of there is like full of, there'll be roamers coming through there and all that stuff all the time, and you don't really want to get your battleships cut out like that. But we also have the Catch Impasse Pipe, which we're debating the usefulness of as a map, and Impasse proper, which is actually really nice now that we have all the ability to scroll. So it's actually the entirety of the Impasse in .land, because Impasse is in a very big region, all things told. But anyway, you can click on those tabs and you can kind of see the separated areas that we have. But when you click on a system, you'll see a bunch of information here towards the bottom. Hexen, is it all loaded for you that you can kind of like follow along with what I'm saying?
Yep.
Sweet. Okay, good. And then you can scroll down through here. When you go underneath the map, you'll see a whole bunch of information just all over the place. There's this little thing that you can take notes in. There's a little quick overview of like name security of the system, even how many planets are there. I've never used that. You can have this cool little thing to the right that'll show you routes. By default, it'll show you how far you are from Jita at any given time, and that's including through the wormholes that you have mapped, which can be deceptive because sometimes we have out-of-date information there. So that is whatever it is. But the predominant thing that we care about is the signatures here in the bottom center of the web page for Pathfinder. And that'll show you the signatures that are in there, the map. For K-Space, an important thing of courtesy that we do is you don't really want to keep track of anomalies. Some people will like update, they'll Control A, Control C, Control V, everything from their probe scanner window into the signature reader, and you'll get just like a whole bunch of havens and stuff. We don't want that. So keep it down to strictly scannable signatures, not anomalies when you're doing that. So uncheck signatures from your probe scanner window when you're adding to this. Speaking of which, I haven't even mentioned how you add to that. A good example is to go to 3GD6 in the main catch tab here. There we go. That's loading for me. Because I just opened that like seconds ago. Waiting until it loads. There we go. And you can see the few signatures that we have. There's a combat signature, there's gas sig that somebody scanned. There's a wormhole that I added the details for. But to do that, you just go into your probe scanner window in-game, Control A with having what you have selected, Control C, and then open up the signature reader just by clicking on it here in Pathfinder, and then just Control V, the result of that into the scan result, and then hit Update Signatures. And that will add all the signatures that you have scanned down. You don't have to have them to 100%. If you can see the name of it and everything, that's good enough for Pathfinder's purposes. But you can see I added a wormhole here earlier. You can see the SIG ID of whatever you're looking at here in the signature reader after you add it into there, what kind of signature it is, be it a gas site, a combat site, wormhole. And then more interestingly, we get into the details here, which I'm moving over with my mouse right now, but the description and what it leads to. And that's kind of important with wormholes. A lot of people don't tend to update that very quickly, but it is pretty handy. In the type, you can see that there's a drag and drop down menu that'll show you all these different types of wormholes. Hexen will probably notice that a whole bunch of them are missing. I don't know if they just haven't added that to Pathfinder. A lot of like the Frigg wormholes aren't, like A009s are one, that sort of thing. But for those, if you don't have the wormhole type in things that you can add right here, you can just add that to the description, which you just input by yourself. You click on the little pencil indicator, and you can add all the information about the wormhole that you're scanning. For novices to wormhole stuff, or people that aren't as familiar with it as some people are, if you hit right-click on a wormhole and show info on it, it'll tell you a bunch of, sorry, I have like a hiccup. It'll tell you a bunch of information, kind of in Eve code, about how big the wormhole is, how much mass can be passed through it, and how much time it has to remain in game before it disappears. Because as you know, wormholes spawn and disappear. Actually, Hexen, you wouldn't mind going over quick, like the sizes, what ships can go through there, the
Sure.
different mass levels and that, because you could probably rattle it off faster than I can.
So from going smallest to largest, you're going to be able to use a frig hole, which is going to be 5 million mass and lower, and then the next step will be a C1 specific hole. So all C6, or excuse me, all C1 traffic will be a medium-sized hole, which means it's 20 million mass or lower. So that's essentially your cruisers. It's also your DSTs, as long as they're not rigged for armor. And then above that is going to be your standard battleship mass, which is 300 million or less. And then finally, it'll be a cap hole. Cap holes are, let's see, 1.250, so 1,250,000,000, I think. And that's going to be the very large holes. And those allow the caps that are non-supers to pass through. However, of note, if you have a high sec cap hole, it will not allow you to take a cap out that is not a shipping. So jump freighters and standard freighters are the only caps that you'll be able to take into it.
Oh, nice. And then considering the critical size of a hole and the time remaining on them?
So
like
the
the mass-
time...
Sorry, my bad.
I'm sorry. Say again for the question.
Oh, yeah, if you can go over like the stuff that shows up on show info, the stuff concerning the mass remaining and then the time remaining, those are the two portions of the show info.
So Eve Thalia is going to be your biggest help on that if you're not familiar with some of the mass capabilities. So taking into account one of the ones that we were talking about previously, which is the R943. R943 is a C2 hole that has only 750 million mass that can be traversed through it, but it can take a 300 million mass ship. So having it at destabbed or destabilized is what we would call it. It will have half of its remaining mass available to it. And that half mass will be based on what hull type it is. So a Z142 is a nullsec to C5, or excuse me, a C5 to nullsec, and that C5 to nullsec will take 3 billion mass to crit it. So its half would be 1.2 billion. So for the R943, having only 750 million mass, then you're looking at half of that, not the 1.5. So it's dependent upon the wormhole itself that you're traversing. And then finally, critical is when it has 10% or less remaining. So an example of the 3 billion mass, that's going to be 300 million mass remaining or less.
Exactly. And then for time remaining, it'll be actually, do you remember what the descriptors they say verbatim are?
This hole has not yet begun to something or another. That's when it's literally brand new. It's got the next step. I can look them up real quick and tell you. 1 second.
That's good. I actually think
I would like to give them verbatim.
Sure, yeah. But yeah, as you can see in the description, we do basically translate that stuff from the show info into the description of each signature that's a wormhole that you scan down. That's important to add because some people won't add that, and you won't actually know how long it is until maybe the hole was EOL, end of life, like less than 4 hours remaining in it, and somebody didn't indicate that, or like that it's a critical wormhole that has there's no mass remaining in it that you can really pass through. A lot of people don't tend to add that stuff, and that's a really important functionality of Pathfinder. It's probably the most important thing that you can do when you're learning Pathfinder is to learn how to add that stuff.
So the text that I put into Fleet is what it is for a Z142, which is the 3 billion mass. So the wormholes all have a different time availability to them. Most of them are going to be 16 hours or 24 hours. However, there are a couple goofy ones. I won't worry about those. So when it's the 24 hours and it's reading that first one, has not yet begun its natural life cycle, that's going to be the 24 hours plus because there is some variance available to them. And then the next one is wormhole is beginning to decay, which means that it has 24 hours or less, but it hasn't reached the end of life. End of life, which is end of its natural lifetime, will be 4 hours or less. And then finally, on the verge of dissipating or on the verge of collapse is when it has 8 minutes or less. Basically, if you look at that, don't go in because you will be trapped.
Exactly. And actually, I don't know if I've ever seen. No, I've seen disappearing into ether like once before, but I almost never catch that because I'm not actually a wormholer. I'm just a dirty K-space.
To note, when it does go to that point where it's EOL or disappearing into the ether, the wormhole is going to look like it's wobbling really bad, and if you zoom in on it, it's gonna have almost no structure to it. It's going to be bobbling back and forth very badly.
Gotcha. But yeah, so when you're doing this wormhole diving thing, whenever you see a wormhole that you scan down and you're actually gonna look at it, do add that stuff into the description and translate it roughly as we do. So I just indicate if it's like very large or large or anything like that, stability and that sort of thing, or the time remaining or time, I guess that, yeah, time remaining, even if it hasn't begun its decay cycle. But yeah, so that's the description. And then you can say leads to whichever place. So there's a drag and drop menu from there that if you go through a wormhole, Pathfinder will automatically update you and where you are. If it didn't update for some reason, sometimes it's bugged out, just refresh the page. Or you can manually add a connection by clicking on the system that you're in and control clicking and dragging it to the wormhole or the whatever system you were in previously. So if I break this connection, I'm doing it. You can detach a connection by right-clicking on it, getting rid. So like the C5 that I have off of G3 to G6 is like not connected anymore. So you can just control click on the C5 and drag it to C3GD6, and it'll reconnect. Just easy peasy right there. So that's the way you can manually add stuff if it's gone. And also that got rid of my nice little description right there. So whatever, I can add that later, because it automatically gets rid of the connections when they disappear. Speaking of these connections things, you can actually interface with them a little bit by right-clicking on the connections between different wormholes or different case-based systems. Mostly the wormhole ones are what we're concerned with. And there's some options from the menu, from the right-click stuff, that you can indicate if it's a frigate hole, which is nice, because frigate being destroyers down, also Hicks, also porpoises, whatever, some exceptions to it. But you can do that so that people know that they can't, like, if they see a cool high-sec connection or something for importing, that they probably can only do that in like a T3D or something. So you can click if it's a frigate hole, and it'll add this nice little indicator that you can see on Pathfinder right now, that it's if it's a frigate hole. You can use preserve mass, which we don't really use that often, except if we're just all furiously active at the time and like somebody else is trying to import, but somebody else is trying to make a crab fleet of 8 guys going there and out, and they're kind of concerned about keeping the mass intact. Changing the scope, you can just indicate if there's a Stargate between systems. And jump bridge, I actually didn't know that was a thing. I don't know how to use that yet, but it's probably not too hard. Change status is important because that's in terms of the time remaining and the mass remaining. You can indicate if it's like it's been crit less than 10% mass, it's reduced less than 50%, or if it has over 50% for stage 1, that's fresh mass wise. And that'll change the color of it. I can mess with these a little bit just so they look a little different. So you see if it's reduced, it'll be like this sort of yellowish color, and if it's critical, it'll be this red, and you don't go into those, generally speaking, unless we're doing some crazy suicide roams. But yeah, just making the information good again. One thing that's nice is when you toggle the end of life cycle, if you have noticed that it's EOL, that'll automatically make a timer start on the connection from when you did that. And it'll make this purplish hue appear over it, and 4 hours from then, it'll just automatically delete the connection for you, and the wormhole will disappear, or whatever connected systems, and the chain, not the chain thereafter, just that connection will disappear. It's kind of handy. There we go, fixed everything. But yeah, you can see this little C5 off of 3GD6. If you click on that, it's a little bit more detailed and what the signatures are in there. I scanned this one completely down and added all the connections that there are for it, or that were active, whatever, an hour ago when I was scanning it. But you can see the examples of how you add the wormhole type, a description of it, update it with the right-click show info from the wormhole, general ideas of like if it's end of life, if it's, you can see this CQG signature is greater than 24 hours. It hadn't begun its decay cycle yet. And usually I include a note for case-based systems just so that at a glance you can kind of see to where they go. If you click on the system itself, it'll tell you which region in K-space it is in. So you can see like Q Nash is in Scalding Pass, or JBY 6 Tech F is in Catch. But yeah, that's the core functionality of Pathfinder, pretty much summed up right in there. You can update the holes and all this stuff from that pretty easily, and that's the majority of what I do whenever I'm like scanning around, just casually for stuff. There's a C13 that isn't marked as a free hole. It's probably an old hole anyway. Anyway, what else was I going to go for the initial rank Valder? Am I forgetting anything for the initial go over of just core functionality?
Yes, so actually two quick things to add. The first thing I want to add is I want to plug that Thera tab real quick.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so that's a script I wrote that it auto-generates Thera based on Eve Scout data. I believe it's every 15 or 20 minutes or something like that. So every however long, it clears the map and redoes all the connections. And if you click on any of the things in there, it will show you the signature IDs. So that's good if you're looking for a Thera hole. Just don't edit it because any edits will be gone after like 15 minutes.
Oh, gotcha. So wait, if you click on Thera itself, it'll show you the sig IDs of to which holes they connect.
Mm-hmm.
That's actually sick. I didn't know that was part of the script. Did you change
Yeah,
that, or was that how it always has been?
It's always been like that, but after I deployed the last release, it broke, and I just fixed it a few days ago.
Oh, sick. All right, I'm just gonna let it load just for the video's sake, so that it can be seen here.
Yep, and one more thing I want to add is that there's 3 types of maps. There's Alliance that have the little blue line on top that you can see there, all of those. There's Corporation, which are, I believe it's a green line, and then Private, which I think, Koffee, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe it's a red line.
I don't know if I'm just being colorblind or if it's purple for me, but yeah,
It could be purple.
Typically purple.
Yeah.
Okay, so it is purple. So blue, green, and purple are the 3 types of maps. We don't use corporation maps because we have a lot of people that use Pathfinder that aren't necessarily in BNI or Spoopy or whatever corp you might be in. Most of them are Alliance, but if you're doing, like, for example, what Koffee said, if you're up messing around in Cloud Ring or something, you can create a personal map for that if you want to track where you're going.
Exactly. And for those, like, I'm hovering over my personal thing. I was basically ninja huffing the gas and fountain because I was just bored and was doing something fun. So I have this map that I'm highlighting right now for the video. But you can basically right-click and add systems at will into these custom maps. You could do that into the Alliance and Corp maps. Everyone's able to edit them, I think, right? Yeah. But yeah, you could just right-click it and you can just say what system you want to add in there, and it'll like the case-based system will stay in there and be locked. You can lock in connections, drag and drop things. It's all pretty intuitive how to do that. But right-clicking on empty space and adding system is the way to do that. For a couple more things of functionality, oh, tracking, enabling tracking for yourself. I gotta remember how to do that in case somebody messes that up.
It's in the top right corner with the arrow.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, there's a little, that's important here. So there's a little tab here that you can see that I'm kind of hovering over with my mouse for the video. But you can disable tracking or turn it back on, or if you're up there. Sometimes if you have Pathfinder open and you're just going on a dive deep into wormholes and you're not actually tracking anything on Pathfinder, it's really convenient for you to disable tracking there, or just close out of Pathfinder entirely. Otherwise, it'll start updating the catch wormhole map, and it'll have all these stuff from like impasse. You'll see people that like jump bridge into 68 foot or something like that, or like jump load into there, and that'll always get added onto this main map. So that's not a real connection. Just delete that if you see that. It's just kind of the tracking functionality of Pathfinder.
Quick question.
Yeah.
Did on the catch map, did all of the connections disappear for you?
Yep, mine did too.
I was just about to ask that.
Yep.
Oh, that's sad.
I might have. Didn't botch that?
Someone probably goofed and selected all of them by accident.
Oh boy.
That's alright.
Wait, is Westcatch intact? Yeah, Westcatch is intact. Yeah, crazy things happen sometimes, but at least we got over the main details.
Is there an undo button that we can all look at?
Nope.
Ow.
Yeah, we might actually have to remap that. I don't know if that's just a thing because I don't think I clicked on anything. I don't know. Sometimes weird things happen. It is always a project, and oh, there they are.
Oh,
they're back.
They came back. I added a connection from GE to V3, and they all came back.
Oh, fantastic! All right. So yeah, but that's pretty much the majority of what we do with Pathfinder. There's some other ancillary things. I'm looking right now at the kill board. That's kind of a thing. It's pretty obvious where it is, but it tells you how long ago something's been killed in the system that you're in. If you're looking at wormholes, that's generally like a crab wormhole. If you saw a big fight happening in like a C2 or something, you generally want to avoid that one if it's next to you. But yeah, it just.
I'm sorry, what was that statement again?
Oh yeah, if you look at the kill board here on the lower right underneath the roots and intel thing, you can see what has happened in a system. So if you go to like GE where there's always fights going on, you can see what was been killed in there in the past 24 hours, and I think it just parses that from zkillboard itself.
Okay. Does it take any of that information from Dotlan for like the jumps and pods and all that?
Yep, that's all in the middle, above the signature reader, underneath the little note-taking part. And it shows you like jumps, ship pod kills, NPC kills in a K-space region. And wormhole space doesn't keep track of that, right?
For jumps and things like that, no, because there's no system to track whether or not somebody's jumping to and from it.
Yeah.
As for ships and pods kills, those are going to be generated from the zkill, so those will still be tracked, but the NPC kills will not be tracked.
Gotcha.
As there's no way to track it unless you're sitting there watching it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
The NPC kills are based, for nullsec that is, are based in .lan off of the security status, as well as also reported information for the security status. And what's the other name for it?
Wait for the security status?
Not security status. It's it says how well you're doing when it comes to ratting and things like that in there.
Oh, the delta? No.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Whatever it is that you're trying to think of.
Yes, gotcha. All right. But yeah, there's also a mass tracking functionality that I actually have never used because we almost never are being that specific or like doing like an eviction or something that matters for trying to get like a whole bunch of ships into it specifically if you're not trying to roll it. Rang, do you know how to use that, the mass tracker?
No, I've never actually used that before.
Okay, yeah, I've almost never used it. Hexen, I don't know how much you guys end up using the actual mass trackers and Tripwire and when you're living in Wormhole.
I hate to blow it, but they're garbage. They don't track as well as you would hope them to. So, via Tripwire, mass tracking is only sketchily accepted.
Gotcha. And that's generally the case, especially with Brave, because we have so many curious newbie guys charging through wormholes and all manner of things that aren't on comms and that sort of stuff. And usually you can't, unless you're watching it. If you're watching it, you're keeping track of it by yourself, so it's not really a thing that people use too often. But strictly speaking, I think that's the core functionality of Pathfinder summed up pretty easily right there. Am I missing anything immediately that you guys are thinking would be around?
I had a previous question for the wormholes that are EOL and such like that. Does Pathfinder automatically remove them, or do they go EOL and then have to be physically removed at some point?
No, it'll get rid of the connection to it'll get rid of the connection. I think actually it does leave the system behind, which if we're looking at it, you can just delete a wormhole if it's empty. Like the C2 that you're in, unless you're actually connected to us somehow.
Did I spam my C2 on accident?
No one saw this. No one saw this at all. I actually can like delete that from the video. There we go.
Yeah, you can see on some of the other maps there's a bunch of orphaned systems. That's because, like what Koffee said, it deletes the connection but leaves the system for, I don't know if you need it later or whatever.
Yeah. But yeah, that's pretty much the core of how to use Pathfinder for day-to-day tracking and just keeping track of wormholes. Follow the chain, go deeper into it. The C5 I have here that I'm looking at is a really good example of how you scan out everything. And then you can see the adjacent holes that I've added, like the K-space connection. I just splashed through the hole real quick, and I didn't actually update any info from the K-space system. So like I didn't put any of the signatures or anomalies in there because I was just splashing through quick to see where it was from. For the J-space system, like the C5 that's next to the initial C5. I'm trying to click on it without messing up my push to talk key. There we go. You can see that I just did a quick, this is an important thing that you should do every time you're going through a wormhole for our purposes, is make sure you select anomalies and signatures for only like warp space systems. And then just Control-C, Control-V, copy everything into there, into the signature reader when you splash into it. Even if you don't scan it, it gives people an idea of what's in there, even if you aren't actually like scanning it diligently. But it's super easy to just splash through a wormhole. To take 5 seconds, do that, and go on your merry way back through. And if everyone did that, we would be ridiculously ahead in scanning. But we're a little bit less active than we have been in the past now. But there have been times where we're furiously active through every time zone, just constantly updating this thing, and it's pretty great when we are. Yeah, I think that's the base of it. I guess any more questions from you guys, and then I can go on to a quick little lecture on picking out a C5 crab hole. All right. Well, quick little thing. One thing that everyone knows the whole divers for is that we do C5 crabbing fleets, and that's a thing. So we basically we get a bunch of remote battleships together and run the combat sites that are inside of those for sleeper loot, get salvage out of it, and you can clear the gas sites, and we can huff that, make T3 production mats and that sort of thing. But people wonder how to do it, and there's only a few people that have like really kind of got the common sense wherewithal to like know what is a good C5 to go through. So first of all, you got to find a C5. Basically scan a whole bunch and see if you find a C5. Since we're going into these from case-based systems, it kind of matters where it is. Sometimes we're all active one night and we're like trying to find a case or C5 connections somewhere to us, and like getting a little desperate. So we'll have people shooting up East Catch and that sort of thing. But don't really go past V3 when you're doing that. Try to stick to West Catch and the impasse pipe, or the catch to impasse pipe, and then like main catch for that sort of thing, because it's just really hard to travel to those systems that are out there, and especially during like prime time EUTZ or US time zone, there's all sorts of fights going on constantly, so you can't really extricate battleships from that. But if you're scanning around and like you find a C5, like I did off 3DD6 here, you basically just scan down every single signature and update all the anomalies, add everything to it as I have, and then splash into the adjacent holes. And then you kind of have to do a quick little bit of triage trying to guess how dangerous the adjacent holes are. So this one that we have here, I marked that the C5s adjacent to it are occupied, and that information will stay. That'll stay inside of like Brave's Pathfinder instance, so that if you write notes or you right-click on a system, set status, and like highlight it a certain color, if that connection disappears and we get to that hole again, it'll pop up with the same information on it. So I guess if we should be, oh, what's that?
If you would like the way that we do notes, we go into Zkill. So we'll take a look and see who is currently killing things in there consistently. Or alternatively, if we see like 7 structures and they're all owned by the same people, then we'll go ahead and go into Zkill, and we will take the section from them. So let me see if I can't grab the stuff from J221146.
Is that
That's just the one that I had clicked on.
Oh, gotcha.
So that's the one that I already had clicked on. You'll notice that it has the same corporation pretty consistently dying in there and occasionally killing, which is James Chazee Delay Incorporation. I'm probably screwing up that name. So that's most likely going to be the owners of that hole.
Wait, is that added in fleet, or just so I can highlight it? Oh, thanks.
I'm looking at it in the Zkill.
Okay.
So what we do from there is we'll click on the corporation.
Gotcha.
Once we have that corporation pulled up, we'll just highlight the corporation's info, which also copies the hyperlinks. So we'll copy the corporation, the CEO, and the number of members. And then for your notes, I'll add it here.
Oh, I like that.
And then it did nothing.
Sometimes it takes a second to get through.
There we go. So let's see if it copied the hyperlink.
Oh, wow. It actually did copy his hyperlink. All right. Super slick. And so, yeah, I guess, yeah, that's actually way more put together than the stuff we do. We only have a few active FCs, and most of us just do it mentally for that. But that's actually really cool. I'm going to start doing that. But yeah, you can see generally how dangerous an adjacent hole is. Things of note is that don't be particularly spooked of a hole just because there's stuff in it. If they're just a bunch of Care Bears or industrialists, we have a lot of battleships, so you can actually grab, and if you can figure out when they're active just by killboard, like if you're in an off time zone, you're at really no risk. Things that people don't think about that often are like the adjacent wormholes to it, because we don't typically roll all of our connections just because that's a pain to do, and usually we just look for a hole that's like a decent target and stick with it. We'll put a picket, which is a alt of somebody that's just in a cloaked ship, or even like our salvager. sometimes we'll take a new guy and just like put him in a salvage ship and uncloaked, he'll sit off the connection inside of the hole that we're grabbing in that goes to an adjacent hole that we think is threatening. So like C2s that have Fortizars on them typically are like people who fight a lot and that sort of thing. So and C2s have a lot of connectivity to other C2s, people like fighting in C2s. If it's like a C2 with a C2 null static, that's a thing that we
So
get.
the thing that you're going to be most scary about when it comes to C5 connections for the C2 section is going to be C5 nullsec static C2s. Those are going to be the ones that are purely for fighting, because they're used predominantly for blops holes. C3s have lots of various connections that connect into it, so hole divers will usually go 2, 3 down. So you're going to want to check C3s pretty frequently, because those will spawn connections to other locations. And then finally, the C4s are going to be your most dangerous because almost all C4s are occupied by active PvPers. C5s are hit or miss.
Exactly.
C6s are crapshoot as well, sorry.
Yeah, that's true. I don't know if I've ever got a fleet come through C6. Usually they'll just try to roll out. In my experience, I don't know if have you gotten fights through them that much?
So C6ers tend to be alts of various larger corporations that own dreads and other things that can crab out C6s very quickly. So they're going to be mostly people that are sitting in their dreads. So that's why they roll out. Those that don't, that'll be their home holes, or alternatively, it'll be people that'll try and find fights via the C6 that they own instead of finding fights via their home hole. So they'll have a home hole that's like a C1 or a C2, and then they'll find fights from the C6 that usually has a C5 static.
Oh, I see what you're saying. So yeah, there's kind of a lot of like, for people watching this, there's like a lot of like common sense wherewithal, understanding of warp space people and like who lives in which kind of holes. And looking at a hole's statics is as important as looking at the hole itself to kind of get a gauge of like what the people in there would be. So just like an eyeball glance at these little holes here, we got like C5s to other C5s, which aren't. I mean, they're probably high class people that fight if they are like numerous corps and not just industrialists, according to the kill board. But you can like crab in a crab hole. A crab hole is a crab hole. It doesn't matter if it's hard knocks or if it's in like a no-name corp. Like if it's an alt corp that people just crab in, typically you can kind of get by with sometimes pushing it if you're feeling lucky and you scout diligently. So that's the main thing for that. So you splash all the connections to the hole that you're going through, and if we're feeling frisky or feeling diligent, you can roll like particularly dangerous ones. If rage is connected to you and you really want to grab that hole, you're gonna have to roll that connection. But what else is there? So when you actually get to the hole and what is you saying, Hexen?
I was going to say for rolling the holes, if you do end up rolling a hole, please note that with the static hole, it's going to instantly respawn within the next minute and a half. So when you see, when you roll a connection, say that it's a E175 in a C5, that's going to be your C4 connection. You're going to roll that, and then within that minute and a half, a new signature will spawn. As long as you don't warp to it and nobody scans, or excuse me, as long as you don't go through it and nobody scans down the connection goes through it, it will be closed for about 4 hours.
I actually had no idea that was a thing. If you don't warp to it from the warp space side.
Correct. So say your C5 has a C4 static of an E175, then that C4 static will remain closed as long as you don't do anything other than warp to it. Once you warp to it and you go through it, it was automatically open. There's no questions asked. If you don't warp to it and you don't go through it, then it will be in that 24-hour plus period. During that 24-hour plus period, it's going to slowly tick down, and after 4 hours, it will start a random percentage. The random percentage, or excuse me, the random chance will be activated after a certain period of time. Each period of, as the closer it gets to having half of its time remaining, the faster that random chance of it opening and appearing on the other side will happen. Now, the only note where that's not the case is when it's a C5 to C5 connection, and in the new C5 that you're spawning into has DRBs. Technically, you can actually combat scan a DRB and find a wormhole that doesn't exist yet. That's the only time that happens.
Oh wow! All right, that's super slick. I had no idea. All right, well that's fun. But yeah, so you roll that out or whatever connections. But pre-bookmarking sites is a thing that you should do if you are the initial scanner of wormholes, and if you're doing a C5 crab fleet, which means you go to all the signatures, which are typically like core garrisons, core strongholds, and you just warp to them cloaked at range. Actually, warp to them at 0. Okay, that way you'll go to the same spot every time. You won't accidentally get decloaked by anything. So that's fine. Wait, was that my mobile bugging out, or is that somebody leaving?
Spoopy.
Spoopy. Oh, it's NVIDIA. What up? But yeah, you warp to the sites. You bookmark a structure in the middle of those. It's kind of a judgment call. Usually there's something that's really central and really obvious. Bookmark that and save it as the signature ID of it in the letters, like QEY, Tech, Core Garrison, or something like that. Make a whole bunch of bookmarks for all those sites that you want to run. And then you can go on your merry way back towards GE and pinging a fleet and hull divers and seeing who wants to come over there. Pre-bookmark is handy because it helps you get a good warp in for everything consistently, and you can get drones closer to the target. Usually I warp at like 20, 30. I don't know what Spoopy does for most stuff. For strongholds, it's a little weird with bumping. Kind of rolling the dice with that a little bit.
Hold on, I'm sending it to you.
Okay.
This is my personal image, so there you go.
Oh wait, is it something in Slack or in Fleet?
Yeah, I'm sending it to you via Slack.
Okay.
That gives you a fairly decent estimation of where you want to place your bookmark. That's not going to be on the structure, so the way that you're going to do it is you're going to warp fairly close to the structure, and then you're going to want to be 19 to 25 kilometers between the structure and that little spatial warp thingy that's off the center for garrisons. That will position you so that the majority of the battleships will be 48 and under kilometers away, which will give you very, very quick response time for all of your drones, and will also take care of any of the assholishness of the magnetars, which lower your targeting range.
Sick. All right. Actually, things that I haven't thought of. This is wormhole proficiency right there. But images on there for posterity's sake. For those of you who are watching this and have no idea what we're talking about with these wormholes, there is a wormhole Bible by Ryuki. Do you use the updated one, Hexen, or do you use the old one for alpha and stuff?
I'll be honest, half of them I have memorized, so when I do use it, I use whatever one that one is.
Fair enough. But I have it highlighted here. It's just look up Ryuki Y or RYKKI wormhole guides, and there's a Google document that is done by one intrepid wormholer that recorded a lot of info about each site. You can pick the class of wormhole here and see what exactly the sites are. When you're actually running the sites, these highlighted red mobs are the trigger rats, so you don't want to shoot those. That will spawn the next site. You gotta like figure out how to shoot them, but that's kind of a different thing altogether. You kind of get the cadence of how to shoot them, and shooting down DPS or shooting down reps according to the site and what's in each wave. But you can see how much loot there is per in wave. I guess ISK per EHP, kind of the idea of how much you have to kill in a site to finish it. After you finish these sites, there is a thing that spawns, I forget the name of the building, that spawns a Drifter Response battleship.
Decloak transmission array.
That's it. Yeah, it's a non-targetable or non-collidable, large collidable structure that you can target and you can shoot. And once you shoot that, a giant battleship will pop out. He has 1 million EHP or something like that. And
Elrithmos Tanos, known as a Drifter Response battleship.
Exactly. And he'll come out there raving. He'll newt one of your guys to death, and if you kill him, you can finish off a site more completely. Typically, we try to kill those if you leave those unchecked. If there's like one guy in the system that logs in and sees that a bunch of brave newbies are crabbing his crab hole, he'll try to like poke the Drifter Response battleships and like get them to kill us if we don't get the backlog of them cleared out. And the mechanics of how those warp arounds are probably beyond the scope of this video. But
so the easiest statement for those is that they always go to celestial objects and anchored structures, meaning that they will go to citadels and research. So things like the Tara, the Athenor, the Osterhus, the Fortizars, they'll go to those, and then any celestial object, meaning planets, moons, the wormholes themselves, which are the most dangerous for people that are diving through wormholes, and then finally they'll also go to Pocos.
Gotcha. But yeah, they warp around, and they're dangerous is for the grabbers of wormholes. So generally you want to kill those as you go through the sites. And they give you more money, and we're usually fit to kill them. Fits are on hole divers for doing that sort of thing. We're some modifications at will. Usually we use remote rep dominixes for the poorer things. Nesters are a little bit better at repping, and you can use nesters in cataclysmic variable wormholes. Wormholes have different weather sometimes. You look at wormhole space in UniWiki here, which I brought up in advance. You can kind of see what the different effects are for different wormholes, and they'll like give you bonuses or penalties depending on which wormhole. And that you can see in Pathfinder. I guess I forgot about that earlier. Like in this little sort of colored square next to the name of the wormhole. So you can see this, the C5 that I mapped out, J211517 is a Wolf Riot, which is kind of like an armor pro hole. The class of the hole will make that weather better or worse, or like have more of an enhanced effect or detriment. And yeah, I guess I forgot to cover that all together for wormhole stuff. I guess that might be a little bit newish. Anything else that I'm missing? I guess I should try to stop recording here at some point real soon. All right, that may actually be it. So there's your introduction to how to use Pathfinder for all the brave newbies out there, hole divers. It takes a little bit of beating your head against the wall to kind of get used to the cadence of it, but it becomes really fluid after a while. If you run dual monitor setup, definitely keep that open on one window while exploring on the other, and it goes really quickly. I haven't set up my second monitor at this new place that I moved to yet, but once I do, I'll be scanning a lot quicker. So thanks a ton for watching all this video. Glad that we have Rangvalder and Hexen, two experienced people in their own respects among Brave, and me kind of making it up as I go to do this, and hopefully you are scanning with us and going through the chain soon. So best of luck. We'll stop recording now. Where's Mumble? There it is.